Hello everyone, I am back with possibly the last build, at least for a while. Unfortunately, Cyberpunk was not made well. I'm not talking about the bugs, I'm talking about the variety in the game. They really don't give you a whole lot to work with in terms of weapons and armor, or other things like that. As I pointed out before in prior recordings, the Defender is a classic example of this. There is only a blue schematic for the Defender, there's not even a legendary for it. Now, there are mods coming out that should fix this problem, but there shouldn't have been a need for mods. You should be able to craft everything in the game without an issue. But it is what it is. Okay, so I just want to get that out of the way, but let's go ahead and talk about some terminology here before we get into the whole build. There is two terms that commonly pop up in the gaming world. They are going to be min-max and theory crafter. Min-maxing is when you try to get the best possible results or numbers out of a particular category, whether that be weapons, armor, or something. Theory crafting is when you try to think or plan for a particular build or mechanical use. So let's just say you have unique armor that has some sort of weird effect. A theory crafter would try to find a way to make that weird, unique armor work with something else. That's theory crafting. When it comes to me, I am more of a theory crafter than min-maxer. I don't do math real well. So I tend to stick to just theory crafting because I'm very good at understanding mechanics and or detailed subjects. So a lot of my builds are theory crafts with testing behind them. With that said, I can now talk about min-maxing in Cyberpunk. Min-maxing only really becomes important in Cyberpunk on the highest difficulty, which is what this build is for. As far as I know, from my own tests and talking with people who play Cyberpunk that are min-maxers, the best way to achieve that is through guns or melee. Quick hacks is not the way to achieve it. Now, yes, I recognize that, there's that toxin build with quick hacking, but there are certainly builds out there for the hardest difficulty that can do a lot more than that. It's also not a good idea to be entirely reliant on one weapon. Very hard difficulty is going to make it so that you have to diversify. I learned this lesson pretty quickly with the shotgun build. The shotgun build, in particular, ran out of shotgun ammo within the first 10% or so of a map in the secret ending. That's just terrible. You should not be running out of ammo that early. Thankfully, though, I had a pistol as a backup. I used Archangel more than I did the shotgun in the shotgun build. That's how bad it was in the hardest difficulty. But yeah, so quick hacking is perfectly fine as a supporting function or a tool. That's what this build is doing. This build is using quick hacking to eliminate trash targets, deal with certain scenarios, and disable security systems. That's all this build is doing with quick hacking. That's why there isn't a whole lot of quick hacking going on with this build. Or intelligence, I should say. This build is using 12 intelligence because the best way that I know of to get to the legendary quick hacks without crafting them, which by the way takes 20 intelligence, is by getting a certain perk under Breach Protocol, I think it is. I can double check. Here, we'll go and tab over. Yeah, it was under Breach, I was right. It's Data Mine Virtuoso. If you have this at max, then you should be getting legendary quick hack drops from data terminals. among other things, of course. If you don't have this, though, then you would need 20 intelligence to be able to craft the legendary quick hacks. While we're talking about quick hacking, let me go ahead and talk about the build's decision regarding the operating system. For this particular build, you will be using ping, so I did think about using the Arasaka Mark IV, but I quickly realized while it is a nice idea, there's one operating system a bit better for this build. That would be the Netwatch Driver Mark V. This makes it so combat quick hacks can affect up to 3 targets within a 6-meter radius. When it comes to dealing with the trash targets, as I was mentioning earlier, there will be certain times where they're bunched up, i.e., 3 sitting on right next to each other, like kind of like at a table scenario. I've had that multiple times with the NCPD scanner stuff. There would be times where there would just literally be 3 targets or even 2 sitting literally right on top of each other with cones of vision on both targets. So the ability just to completely wipe out a scenario like that is a far better alternative than getting an operating system just to use ping. Because with that, you can make it so overheat or a short circuit will basically fry all 3 at once. So why ping? Ping is great because it highlights the targets for you. This build is using tech weapons, so if it comes to charging your tech weapon to nail a target through the wall, then you will want ping to see them. Due to this build not relying on quick hacks, you want to make sure that you're as efficient as possible. That means using as minimal RAM as possible when going into a scenario. To do that, ping is the best way to handle it because ping doesn't cost that much RAM, and all you need is a couple seconds to see where they're at, line up the shot, and nail them through the wall. That's the end of the story there. On cyberware, let me go ahead and discuss one other topic here. Okay, I haven't done a fully dedicated smart weapon build yet because of, well, game AI. You can't rely on game AI to actually function the way you want it to, in most cases, as I've learned. I brought this example up with the iconic smart shotgun, I forget its name now, but you couldn't guarantee that all of the projectiles were hitting the torso, which is important for one of the perks related to shotguns. However, I did notice that the Asura, I'm guessing is how it's pronounced, doesn't seem to really have too much of an issue. It hits the head pretty consistently if you have the legendary Smart Link, which is what's there in the middle of that particular tab. If you'll notice, the legendary Smart Link makes it so that it homes in, 15? Yeah, 15% better. And Asura with a legendary Smart Link does a pretty good job of tracking heads. So I'm fine with using Asura, but as far as other smart weapons, I don't think it's really a good idea. Plus, there's other alternatives, or at least a better way of handling it, especially with this build. So that's just another thing to talk about while on cyberware. Now we're going to go into the build. Let's go ahead and talk about the stats, seeing as I was mentioning that earlier. This build is going to be a bit all over the place because of just where I needed to be for the particular perks and things. I needed 14 reflexes to reach Wild West, which eliminates the damage drop-off for pistols and revolvers, allowing them to become basically mini snipers. I have 20 tech because this build is using tech weapons for the most part. You can use a sniper rifle other than Asura if you want to, but I do recommend using the Asura with this build. However, as far as the other weapons, there's not really much of a choice there. You are going to be using the Achilles Tech Precision Rifle, and you are also going to be using either a Buria Tech Revolver or a DR-12 Quasar Tech Revolver. We'll go over that in just a bit, but that's the reason for Tech being at 20. Body's at 18 because just like every other build that I do, I make sure that it can take a hit. Unfortunately, because this build does not have 16 cool, it's not going to have access to Pain Ender. That means you will not have the 10% damage reduction like the other builds. Instead, you're going to be entirely reliant on armor. That's going to be the unfortunate thing with this build, is you will be entirely reliant on armor. When it comes to the elemental stuff, you are going to be pretty dependent on your cyberware to take that problem away, for the most part. You can get rid of the fire damage over time, you can get rid of the electric damage, and you can eliminate the bleeding dot, but you won't be able to eliminate poison, unfortunately, with this build, just because of the cool being too low. So yes, this build is going to be able to take a hit, but not as well as other builds. So yes, you're going to be reliant more on body than you are going to be cool for your damage reduction. Intelligence, as I was saying earlier, is at 12 because of the Virtuoso perk. I don't want to put this build on 20 intelligence because of it not relying on quick hacks. If anything is just a tool or a way to deal with trash targets, it would be a complete waste of this build to be at 20 intelligence. Instead, you're going to sit at 12 and wait for a legendary quick hack to drop, at least the ones that you would use for this build. With that all said, now we can go into the specifics of the build, which I do Google Documents for each time. Okay, before I get into weapons, real quickly, I just want to mention something with crafting. One of the things that I did try to change with this build in comparison to my other builds was make it not reliant on level 18 crafting. In order to craft legendary iconics and get access to some of the legendary schematics, you do need level 18 crafting. That takes a lot of resources and a lot of time to reach there. This build needs to be able to handle the hardest difficulty as efficiently as possible and as quickly as possible. To do that, I need to not rely on schematics that are only unlocked at level 18. For that reason, it has selected the Achilles, Buria, and Asura or SP32 Grad for its weapons. Unfortunately, Nikomata is a level 18 crafting reward along with the DR-12 Quasar. So if you want to go up to level 18 crafting just for those two weapons, that's your call, but I think that the build is perfectly fine on a Buria, Asura, and Achilles. They all do a tremendous amount of damage, and you don't really have to worry too much about whether or not the target's going to get dropped. If you do it like that, then it does free you up to use Smart Link, because if you use the Grad, then you kind of do want the ballistic coprocessor, just in the event that you can make it ricochet and hit something else. It's pretty awesome, actually. But yeah, so that's all of your weapons. Let's look at quick hacks. You can see I list them all here, but you're going to be looking for Short Circuit Legendary, Overheat. And then as far as Ping and Cripple Movement are concerned, you don't have to get those as Legendary, but it would be nice to get the higher qualities of them. The reason you want Short Circuit and Overheat at Legendary is because that's when they do their best damage, but also because Short Circuit at Legendary says that it applies its uncommon effect when you critical strike. So that means if you're using the Achilles, Buria, or Asura and it critical hits, then it's going to apply Short Circuit uncommon effect at the same time. The uncommon, where is it here? The uncommon is that green text. So you can see uncommon says deals damage to the target, very effective against mechanical enemies and targets with weak spots. So yes, you're getting electrical damage on top of your critical damage is essentially what it boils down to. That's why the legendary Short Circuit is very important for this build. Ping is of course important, so you can actually see targets behind barricades to direct the Achilles or Buria at them. But moving back to this, Cripple Movement is a classic example of what I was talking about when only using quick hacks for a tool or dealing with trash targets. Cripple Movement makes it so that a target stays still, allowing you to do any number of things to them, either with quick hacks, the Buria, Achilles, or even the Asura. And this is great for those gigs where it says to not kill a target, and a lot of those gigs, the target in question that you can't kill is, or I should say shouldn't kill, is going to be a melee target. So this build is not using melee like my other builds. While melee can work in very hard difficulty, it's certainly not going to be as efficient as, say, a quick hack supported Buria. So yes, that's going to be a core as well. If you have spare slots for daemons, after you get all those cores, then you can get Contagion, request backup, or reboot optics. Contagion at Legendary makes it so quick hacks spread more, essentially. I don't know if that triggers with the net driver thing, because technically Short Circuit at its base is not a spread quick hack, but the net driver makes it a spread, so I'm wondering if Contagion actually does help that. But if not, you can use request backup instead of Contagion. That'll put a target much closer to another target, so you can fry more than one target at a time. So let's just say you have a lone target just sitting out in the middle of nowhere. You don't want to open fire on them. You just simply call backup to that location and you fry 2 people at once. That's what call backup's for. Request backup. And reboot optics is just there in case like you have an extra slot so you can blind people. That's essentially what that's there for. So that's all of your quick hacks and weapons, and that's basically what the build is doing. All the other perks are pretty straightforward. They will be in the Google document, just like the last couple of builds. In conclusion, I think this is my finest build that I have done. This build is making it less aggravating to work with than the other builds because of their reliance on crafting, while also making sure that you are more than capable of handling the hardest difficulty without having to think about too much. So yeah, that is pretty much the build in a nutshell. Thanks for listening.